हाँ जी, आवाज़ आ रही है आप लोगों को? कोई एक बच्चा बोल के बता दीजिए। कोई एक बच्चा बोले ताकि मुझे समझ आ जाए। जी, आवाज़ आ रही है आप लोगों को? बच्चों, हाँ जी मेहरीन, आप बोल के बता दें कि आपको आवाज़ आ रही है। हाँ जी, आवाज़ आ रही है?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
अपने माइक म्यूट कर लें। अच्छा जी, लास्ट क्लास में आप लोगों ने आई ड्रॉ कर ली थी?
Yes, ma'am.
ओके, चलें आज हम लोगों ने नोज एंड लिप्स ड्रॉ करते हैं। पहले नोज की एक वीडियो दिखा देती हूँ आप लोगों को। Apologize in advance because I'm feeling a little under the weather today. जी स्क्रीन शेयर करिए, जरा चेक करें। स्क्रीन शेयर होगी?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Eighth grade, I want to apologize in advance because I'm feeling a little under the weather today, which you can probably hear in my stuffy nose and my raspy voice. So I'm going to do my best not to do too much sniffling or sneezing, disrupting the video, but I just want to let you know, just not feeling that great today. Okay, we're going to be doing a video today on drawing a human nose. And I've most likely already talked with you about how everybody's nose has a little bit of a different shape. I like to start drawing noses starting with the tip of the nose. So I have a very round tip of my nose, so I'm going to start right here with a circle. Everybody has two nostrils, and there's kind of different parts of the nostrils. There's the actual hole itself, and then there's also sort of that, you know, for lack of a better word, this like flesh on the outside of a nostril that kind of holds that in place. So what I like to do when I'm drawing a nose, and I know this doesn't look like a nose yet, is I just try to kind of map out where those nostrils are going to go. So you can see this will be the tip of the nose. These will eventually become the nostrils. And one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're drawing noses is they make a really distinct line on either side of the nose to show where the nose meets the face. But we are going to actually create that line here using shadow. We're going to wait till a little later on to do that. So the nose has just a few simple parts, starting with that tip of the nose, which I've already put in place. I want to start establishing where I want my nostrils to come in. So I'm going to map out the bottom of the nose here. I'm going to make this a little bit more of a what we would call a bulbous. अब देखिए इस पे बता रही है कि आप लोगों ने कोई भी जो है ना डार्क लाइन नहीं लगानी, ठीक है, एक्सेप्ट वो पार्ट्स जहाँ पे थोड़ा शेडो शो हो रहा है।
तो ये मैंने पहले ही बताया था कि जब भी फेस फीचर्स ड्रॉ करते हैं कभी भी इतनी शार्प किस्म की आउटलाइन नहीं लगाते, ठीक है। तो इसमें भी जो है ना वो यही करिए, जहाँ पे डार्क पोर्शन है वहाँ पे उसको डार्क करेगी, बाकी जो है ना सारा का सारा शेड देगी। तो ये जरा गौर से देखिए।
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम।
Just trying to figure out.
जी जी जी।
मैम वो माम शहबाज है, वो कह रही थी कि आप उसको एंटर कर लें और शायद उसने कनेक्ट किया, आप एंटर नहीं हो रही वो क्लास में।
ओके मैं करती हूँ इसको।
यस मैम, मैम तैयबा फातिमा का भी मैसेज है।
वेट करें। हाँ जी, अब ज्वाइन हो गई।
यस मैम।
चलिए।
Where those nostrils are going to go. So these will eventually become the holes in the nose. I have this curved form happening around the outside. What I want to do now is I want to make sure that I show that that skin is.
टीचर की आवाज ये YouTube से वीडियो निकाल के दिखा।
हाँ जी, क्या हुआ?
ये टीचर की आवाज।
जी क्या हुआ?
मैम कुछ नहीं, वो किसके गलती से म्यूट हो गया था।
Right up into this little opening that we've created. I apologize. I don't have the words for everything that I'm doing. So a lot of what you're going to see today, a lot of what you're going to learn, you're just going to have to watch to understand. All right, I'm trying to get that pretty symmetrical there. And you can start to see this nose form sort of taking place. And I don't want to get too carried away with outlines. I'm just suggesting where those are going to be. Now that I'm pretty certain I've got those pieces marked, I'm just going to get rid of those original lines. And this would be a good example of when you should draw light until you get it right. If you draw too dark right off the bat, you're going to be stuck with some unfortunate outlines. Now that I have that in place, I know that the darkest place in the nose is definitely going to be right on the inside of the nostril. It's usually darker right at the top, and it gets a little lighter as it goes down. I'm going to do that on both sides. I don't want it to look like a perfect circle. I don't want it to look like, you know, a giant hole in the face. Most nostrils are not perfectly circular. Well, yours might be. Everyone's different. I'm going to be using a number 4 blending stump today. This is one of my all-time favorite drawing tools. Remember, it's just a tool for blending. It doesn't have any color on it already, so you have to make sure that you have a little bit of graphite there so that you can blend and smooth. So I'm just going to start coming in with my blending stump, and I'm going to have you kind of watch what's happening here.
अब इस पे देखिए कि वो वहाँ शेड करी है जहाँ पे सिर्फ डार्क पोर्शन है, ठीक है। बाकी हर किसी को जो है ना लिटिल बिट शेड से क्लियर करिए। जो डार्क लाइंस हैं उनको सिर्फ कवर करना है। बाकी आपने नोज़ की जो मेन लाइन होती है, जो ऊपर नोज़ ऊपर से स्टार्ट होता है आई से लेकर नीचे तक, वहाँ पे इतनी ज़्यादा डार्क लाइन नहीं देनी है आप लोगों ने। अभी देखिए सारा शेड जो है ना वो नीचे करिए, इसके नीचे आप इसमें कॉटन बड से कर सकते हैं इसको।
Just creating the shadow on the underside of the nose. There's going to be a little bit of value around the sides.
ये से ब्लेंडिंग पेंसिल आपको वैसे भी मिल जाएगी, ठीक है। आप यहाँ से भी पता कर सकते हैं।
Now, because this nose has a round tip, I want to make sure that I'm shading it in a round form. So just using my pencil, I'm just going to very carefully map in where I want to add some shadows. And I'm using an overhand grip here. That's going to help me use the wide flat side of my pencil graphite. And hopefully that will work. Now this is just a very basic nose. I'm not going for my nose or anyone in particular. I'm just trying to do a very basic human nose, could be male, female. I'm really emphasizing, excuse me, that rounded form there. I'm also giving shadow to the outside of the nose. You're going to notice your nose is going to have a lighter strip right down the middle. The part of the face that comes out farthest is always going to catch a little bit of reflection. So I'm going to make sure I can see that right along the bridge of the nose here. I might want to bring in shadows just a little bit farther. All of this is just a lot of playing around. You'll notice there are so few lines. There's really only 3 lines in the whole drawing. The left nostril, the septum here, and then also the other nostril. And I'm going to actually come in, just give it a little bit more definition to really show that it's got some deep shadows happening there. Now you'll notice this takes time. I'm really trying to go as quick as I can, but still do a nice job for you all. I have a little bit more shadow underneath. I'll blend that with my blending stump. I cannot overstate how important a blending stump is. It's one of just the absolute best tools for creating shadow. Now, of course, if we were going to make an entire face here, we could add in the eyes and the eyebrows right up here.
शैडो ही है इसके अंदर, ठीक है. बेसिक लाइंस हैं वो नोस्ट्रल्स पे हैं और साइड लाइंस हैं, ठीक है. इसके अलावा सारा का सारा शैडो है वो आपने एक दफ़ा अपनी स्केच को नज़दीक से देखना है, एक दफ़ा स्केच को दूर से देखना है, तो आप ऑटोमेटिकली जो है ना उसकी डेप्थ शो होना शुरू हो जाएगी, उसकी 3Dness शो होना शुरू हो जाएगी.
But I'm pretty happy with this. It's not a terribly advanced version. The more you practice, the better you will get at shadows. But for people just starting out, just like you guys, this is going to be a really nice example for you. So the key here is keep the parts that come away from the face. They should have a nice light shadow. The areas that curve back towards the rest of the face are going to have the darker parts. And you want to limit the amount of lines that you use. And there you have it. A pretty basic, round, cute little nose, if I do say so myself. Thanks for watching.
ठीक है. अच्छा जी, अब कुछ और टाइप्स को देख लेते हैं.
Excuse me, ma'am.
हाँ जी.
मैम हम लोगों ने फुल्ली बनाना है या हम लोग साइड पोज भी बना सकते हैं?
ये आप लोगों ने फुल बनाना है.
ओके मैम.
पहले आप फुल बनाएंगे आप लोग, उसके बाद जो है ना आप लोग साइड पोज बताओ. अच्छा जी.
Excuse me, ma'am.
जी जी. हाँ जी.
मैम ये अभी बना के चेक कराना आपको?
हाँ जी, किसने पूछा?
मैम मेरी आवाज नहीं आ रही आपको?
जी जी, कौन बात कर रहा है? जरा दोबारा एक दफा बोल दें.
मैंने कहा आपको ये अभी चेक कराना है आपको बना के?
हाँ जी, अभी करा.
कितने बजे तक टाइम लास्ट?
1 बजे तक, ये 12:45 तक आपने दिखाना स्टार्ट कर देना।
ओके मैम।
अच्छा ये एक और वीडियो देखें जरा, मैं स्क्रीन शेयर कर रही हूँ। होगी शेयर स्क्रीन?
यस मैम।
अब ये फॉर्मूला उसके अंदर वही है कि आपने 3 सर्कल्स लगाने हैं, ठीक है। अब वो 3 सर्कल साइड पोजेस के लिए कैसे 3 सर्कल लगाने हैं वो जरा इस वीडियो में आपको ना क्लियरली समझ आ जाएगी। एक नोस्ट्रल्स का, एक मिड वाला, 2 नोस्ट्रल्स से और एक मिड वाला, जरा चेक करो। ये सर्कल्स की बेसिकली प्लेसमेंट है। हाँ जी, आज सिर्फ आप लोगों ने नोज ही करना है बस। पिछली वीडियो भी शेयर कर देते हैं। ये मैं रिकॉर्डेड लेक्चर्स भी जो है ना जल्दी ही अपलोड करती हूँ, फिर आप लोग बता देती हूँ। हाँ जी, कोई और चीज़ समझ जो ना लगी हो।
मैम ये काम आपको सबमिट कब तक कराने है? आईज और नोज दोनों?
आईज और नोज तो नहीं, आईज वाला काम तो पिछली क्लास का था, ये लैब वर्क है बेसिकली। ये आप लोगों ने सबमिट नहीं कराना, ये बस लैब वर्क है।
ओके।
ये आज आप लोगों ने 12:45 में मैंने सबका देखना है।
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम,
जी
मैम मेरा लास्ट वाला वो जो स्लीव्स और ट्राउजर्स वाला था ना वो रहता है, तो वो मैं आपको अभी चेक करवा दूं?
नहीं, वो आप मुझे इसको क्या नाम है, जाहिद को भेज दें। उसने ऑलरेडी
ठीक है मैम।
फोल्डर शेयर किया, तो अपने नेम का फोल्डर बनवा दें उसको, और उसमें जो जितनी भी पेंडिंग असाइनमेंट इसकी रह गई है वो करवा दें। अदरवाइज अगर
ठीक है मैम, नोज वगैरह की तो नहीं करवानी ना?
इसकी नहीं, नोज इनकी नहीं करवानी, जो लैब वर्क करवानी है उसकी नहीं करवानी है आप लोगों ने।
ठीक है मैम।
उसका एंड फॉर द रिकॉर्ड मैं उसका ना स्क्रीन शेयर किया करूंगी क्लास के अंदर ही, तो आप लोग मुझे दिखाना है।
चलें ठीक है मैम।
ठीक है,
ठीक है, अल्लाह हाफिज़ मैम। ठीक है।
हाँ जी, किसी ने और कोई क्वेश्चन करना है तो कर ले।
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम, एक ही पेज पे जितने मर्जी बनानी के 1 2 3 बनानी है इससे?
आपको तो मर्जी है, आप प्रैक्टिस करें। ये फ्री हैंड ड्राइंग है, आप लोग प्रैक्टिस करें बैठ के, ठीक है। इसमें कोई वो नहीं है कि आप लोगों ने जल्दी जल्दी करके जो है ना कुछ कर देना है। लेकिन एंड पे बेशक मैं फाइनल के लिए कोई ऐसा प्रोजेक्ट दे सकती हूँ जिसके अंदर आपको आई, नोज और लिप्स की जो है ना सबमिशन देनी पड़ सकती है। तो कोशिश करें जो लैब का वर्क है, जो अगर मैं आपको टाइम दे रही हूँ लैब के वर्क के लिए, तो आप लोग लैब के अंदर काम करें, ठीक है, ताकि मैं आप लोगों की गलती आप लोगों को उसी वक्त बता सकूँ।
मैम आज सिर्फ नोज बनानी है?
हाँ जी, सिर्फ नोज बना, एक तो फ्रंट पोज बना लो, एक साइड पोज अगर आप लोगों को समझ आती है तो बना लो, अदरवाइज फ्रंट ही ठीक है फिलहाल के लिए।
ओके मैम।
हाँ जी, चलिए 12:30 तक मैं आपकी मार्किंग कर रही हूँ, 12:40 तक स्टार्ट कर दूंगी मैं, ठीक है। तब तक मैं एक वीडियो भी ऑन करती हूँ, तब तक उसको भी देख लें आप, और भी वीडियोस।
Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you 6 different
Hey, this is Darlene, and you're watching a rapid fire art tutorial on how to draw a fish. Curve your lines outward at the top as the bridge turns into the brow bone. Through the middle of the circle,
Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you 6 different common nose shapes and how to draw them. So the first shape that we're going to do is Aquiline, which is pretty common. Generally, this nose has kind of a standard ball of the nose where it's kind of round. It might have a little more of a point at the bottom. Generally pretty proportional in terms of the nostrils. So when I draw out my nose,
ये वीडियोस उन बच्चों के लिए जो लेट आए हुए हैं या आप लोग वैसे इसको चेक कर सकते हैं साथ साथ, ठीक है? अदरवाइज आप अपना काम साथ स्टार्ट करें आप लोग.
this I tend to focus on shapes. So breaking my noses down into shapes and even drawing them from the side as well. I focus on just breaking it down simply in order to get the forms that I'm looking for. So one of the sort of more striking features of the Aquiline nose is there's a little bump on the bridge of the nose here. And the tip of the nose is sometimes slightly upturned. So generally, as we look at the other nose shapes, you'll notice more of a difference when we see them from in a profile view. So that's generally where we start to notice more differences in shape. So there's generally kind of like a stronger brow in addition to the more interesting shape of the profile of the nose. Towards the front, it's a bit more plain. Now that we have things shaded, a few key defining features of the Aquiline nose would be kind of a more distinguished dip between the brow and the nose. There's also kind of a bump at the bridge of the nose. Oftentimes we do see kind of a slightly upturned tip of the nose as well. And when we see sort of that tip of the nose in the front, there's kind of an indication of the bump there with a slight amount of shading. You can see a slight amount of shading here to indicate the bridge of the nose dipping inwards further from the protrusion. So that's our first type of nose. Our second type of nose is going to be a hooked nose. All right, so a hawk nose or a hooked nose tends to kind of protrude out further all the way down the shape of the nose. So we call it a hawk nose because it's kind of beak-like, and then it's very large along the bridge of the nose. So we often see, instead of kind of an inward slant or more of a diagonal, we're seeing kind of more of a outward curve. The nostrils sometimes tend to be a little more oval shaped in a longer fashion, so not quite so round. So we still have sort of a triangular shape here, it's just a little more curved this time. From the front, there's not too much of a difference in terms of shape. Instead of using just a straight circle for the ball of the nose, I'm going to use more of an oval shape, and that's going to kind of help me get the sort of thin point to the nose that we would see here. So the bridge of the nose is usually a little bit thinner. So I'm shaping the nostrils kind of at a diagonal here, and that's going to give them kind of more of a pointed look. The inner part of the nostrils also kind of come upwards a little bit higher. So some key defining features of the hawk or hooked nose would be the swooping outward motion of the bridge of the nose. The ball of the nose kind of turns under instead of being upturned. And generally they're a little bit taller of a nose if you're looking at it from the side. So that brings us to our third nose shape, which would be a straight nose. So the straight nose is also known as a Greek nose, and we see this primarily like when we look at classical sculpture. So the Greek nose doesn't really have much of a dip in the bridge where the brow line begins, and the profile of the nose is quite straight. It doesn't really come out very far at an angle, and generally the curves are quite subtle. It doesn't really curve very much. So just gentle slopes on the nose. And again, it's a very straight nose. That's why we call it a straight nose. So not a lot of curve to it. From the front, when we look at it, just a very simple 3-circle setup. And the bridge of the nose is quite straight. It doesn't really curve in super far. All in all, a straight nose is very straight. You know, I can't say too much else about it. We see it when we look at it. So the straight nose, not a lot of curves, very proportionate. Generally things like we see in classical Greek sculpture. The next nose we're going to look at is a button nose. So the button nose is very round. Generally they're smaller noses, whether in height or width or both. And primarily they just consist of the 3-circle method. And oftentimes the bridge of the nose is not very distinct when it comes to the shading, very subtle amount of space coming up from the face. So generally we're going to be lighter with the shading along the bridge of the nose on a button nose. Proportionally, generally the ball of the nose tends to be kind of in line with the nostrils. So obviously the ball of the nose is going to be larger than the nostrils, but it's set up just slightly higher. Not as high as an upturned nose, but it doesn't quite hang down as far as, say, a hooked nose or the straight nose like we just saw. When we see it from the side, there might be a slight upturn to it. It might be straight across. The nostrils are generally still pretty round in nature. And there is not a lot of curve to the brow distinction on the bridge of the nose. So it's just a slight angle. All right, so the button nose, again, characterized by very small bridge of the nose, doesn't protrude very far from the face, and generally is quite rounded, so very soft edges. Our next nose would be an upturned nose or a snub nose. The snub nose is characterized by kind of an upward tilt to the tip of the nose. So I kind of start with a little oval to do the profile. And the nose kind of bumps outwards. It looks kind of similar to a button nose in that they're generally smaller in terms of the bridge of the nose and the dips created there. So the curves are usually slightly smaller, not quite so exaggerated. But then we tend to have kind of a noticeable bump out in the tip of the nose. When we look at an upturned nose from the front, we do tend to see a bit more of the nostrils. So when I do this, we almost make kind of like a triangular shape here to start with. So the ball of the nose kind of juts upwards and the nostrils sit just slightly below it in this case because it is pointing upwards slightly more. So I'm actually going to be kind of changing the shape of the nostril from how we're seeing it. We're going to see just a little bit more of it. And when we begin shading along the bridge of the nose, we're going to have a little bit more definition between the ball of the nose and the bridge of the nose. That is going to kind of help us define the sort of upturnedness of the nose itself. So the upturned nose or snub nose is characterized by kind of a bump in the tip of the nose where the nose turns itself upwards. We tend to see a little bit more of the nostrils when we're seeing it from a front view. And generally the brow to the bridge of the nose has a gentle slope. And now we have one last nose shape, and that would be a wide nose. The last shape of nose we're going to talk about is a wide nose. So generally wide noses are kind of characterized by a larger ball of the nose. This could be round, it could be more of like a rounded triangle. It's also characterized by wider set nostrils. So the nostrils tend to be a little bit larger and they sometimes might flare out, other times they might be a little flatter. So in the case of the nose that I'm going to draw, it's going to be more of the flatter style. So in addition to being wider at the base of the nose, we're also going to have a bit of a wider and flatter bridge of the nose. So it's not going to protrude quite as much. So that means the shading is going to be quite a bit lighter in this vicinity. When we look at the wide nose from the side, it's characterized again by kind of the ball of the nose, the nostrils, and then this sort of swooping shape from the bridge of the nose to the eyebrow. All right, so with the wide set nose, again, the nostrils further set apart, the bridge of the nose is a little flatter to the head as evidenced by sort of the swooping shape that's created in the profile. So there you have it. We have 6 different types of nose shapes. From the aquiline, the hawk or hook nose, straight nose, button nose, snub nose or upturned nose, and wide set nose. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to draw a variety of different lip shapes. But let's get started with
चलिए नेक्स्ट मीटिंग में 12:40 पे करती हूँ, ठीक है? तो 12:40 तक आया आप लोग सारे। हाँ जी, आवाज़ आ रही है?
यस मैम आ रही है।
यस मैम आ रही है।
12:40 तक
Yes, ma'am.
ओके।
ओके मैम।
ओके मैम।